I'm here to talk to you about the human experience and the amazing gift we have, the human mind. What a powerful tool that gives us all of our senses. We all possess a sense, though, that is much more domineering than the 5 we are typically aware of. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I? I'm sure you've created stories in your head before. Well, guess what? All of these things come from the sense of self. The who am I, what am I doing, where do I want to go, etc. You know, your past, your future. Well, guess what? The brain is a sponge, soaking up every experience and storing information from a life's worth of encounters. I know this sounds obvious, but it uses this information to form an identity of who you are. We call this the sense of self, or ego. I'm sure many of you have probably heard of the term ego by now. But here's the thing, we need to end the stigma. The ego is not the enemy. Identification with it can cause a lot of unnecessary conflict in our lives, though. Initially, most of us aren't aware of our identification with it, so we unwillingly succumb to every story it creates inside our head. That inner chatter can be incessant, punishing, grandiose, belittling, or just a downright brat at times, and it can totally skew your self-perception. But not just your perception of you, it can create a distorted view of our inner and outer world equally, blending half-truths with a lot of self-criticism and emotional reactivity. That creates a lot of unnecessary suffering. Let's burst some more ego bubbles right now. A lot of what we hear about the ego is inaccurate, not in just what it tells us, but in what we hear about it. It's also a great reporter of fake news, and most of what we hear about it is fake news too. I'm sure you've encountered these situations. A person claiming their ego got the better of them, a gym sign saying no ego training, or people saying they have no ego. All of the avoidance and barriers we create around the ego can only be fueled by the ego. Therefore, demonizing the ego only creates more conflict. So remember this. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy, but it is here to stay. So first, the idea is to practice awareness of it, then we learn how to reintegrate it as a tool. Like I say, it's here to stay regardless, so you may as well become acquainted with one another. It's a very powerful tool and a powerful ally when we learn to develop our awareness of it. Our lives can improve significantly. I cannot state this enough. Remember this. Here's 2 simple rules to begin. Just practice your self-awareness by starting watching how your mind reacts. Okay? That's all you need to do. And then don't treat these thoughts as something that you need to eradicate. And treat your sense of self in the same way you would an innocent child, with love and understanding. That is really, really important. And then over time, you'll start to connect the dots. You'll start to have light bulb moments and see how your brain works, and therefore becoming less of a victim of it.